Good evening, everyone. We're back here on Farm Sim 15 and Gelvin Valley. I don't know how many episodes in I am, but if anybody's made it this far, you are a champ. I figure you'd be getting tired of listening to me and staying on the same map this whole time. But last episode, I was visiting with everybody about family pets, and I think all I was able to cover was cats, a few of them, and a couple of our dogs. Mentioned Tucker. I think we had to put him down because he was he was hurting. He had arthritis in his hips, unable to move as fluidly as he once could, and so we unfortunately had to do the deed and do the responsible thing, I think, and help him along out of out of this life. But never forgotten. I still pull up pictures of him every now and again and remember having him. He was a good dog. And I think I already explained Wade died kind of in his place, and in some ways I wish um, Tucker could have lived to see him because I think he would have just had a ball with him. We felt a void not having Tucker around, so we kind of knew we wanted another couple dogs, and so we had a friend of ours that goes to our church who had a female dog, and the females, if you don't spay them, um, mistakes can happen. Let's just put it that way. They had a dog, I think her name was Coco. Not sure what all kind of a dog Coco was. I think kind of a mix of a number of things, actually. But in their neighborhood, they live even further out in the country on a farm, and there was another dog in the neighborhood, a male dog who got loose. I think the dog was, oh, was he an English black lab? Anyway, this dog and Coco met up, and, well, let's just say Coco got preggers and had a litter of several pups. And so this was right about the time when Tucker, was put down, and so we knew we wanted another dog. And so my wife and I think my boys went up and kind of looked over the puppies when they were first born, and oh, puppies are just awesome. Is there anything that can beat a puppy? I'm not sure there is. Well, they really couldn't settle on one. They wanted there was two of them that caught their eye, so we ended up buying two of the puppies, and one is well, let's see. I think they have some. Yeah, Coco has some beagle in her, and was there some Australian Shepherd? I don't know. She wasn't a very big dog, but so the resultant dogs, both of them that we have are black. Um, one of them is coal black. I don't think, and maybe there's a little bit of reddish brown fur on her. Um, I think her mother Coco had some reddish brown fur. And the other one is black mainly except for a white strip that goes kind of down her tummy and down her tail maybe a little bit, but otherwise they're both kind of black. So we named them. These are female puppies, so we named one of them the black one Ebony, and the one that had some white on her we named her Empress. And so the dogs have never gotten that big. Neither of them are as big as Tucker that we had or Wade that we also had before. But they're just the right size. They are such lovable puppies, and we've tried to train them in various things. One of them, because I think there's some lab in them, um, both have periodically fetched stuff, but the one who does it the most consistently is Ebony. Oftentimes, I mean, this is the endearing thing about a dog. You go to work, you maybe have a crummy day, you come home, the dog meets you, all excited to see you. And in Ebony's case, a lot of the times oh, I didn't crunch that rock. Oh well, maybe it isn't being the small one. She will just bring a frisbee, she'll bring her little tire that she plays with because she wants you to throw it so she can go fetch it. I just love that about an animal, in terms of how they interact, with a human. Just can make you go from feeling bad, maybe if you had a rough day, to, feeling better about life again, just by being who they are. So we got these as just, I don't know how long they were with the mother until they were weaned. Several weeks, I assume, and we brought them home. And this is one time I made a brief concession to have them in the house. Every now and again, they try to come into the house. But one Christmas, I think, when we were all in there as a family, um, we brought them in and we put them in their little basket so they could be in there with us. And I think maybe one of them messed the carpet, which is another reason I don't like having them in the house. But such is life. And so we still have those two around, and they're a lot of fun. And it's just interesting seeing the different personalities of animals, and we see it in the dogs too. Empress is kind of, oh, what is it? She's kind of like a princess, dainty, if you will, hesitant, and just kind of demure and not as outgoing as what Ebony is, and doesn't do the same things. Sometimes she'll be just more reserved and held back, whereas Ebony's more forward, will come out to meet you or other people. Um, and Ebony, I mean, it's interesting with an animal too. Um, there, if someone came up to me and stepped on my foot, maybe they didn't do it on purpose, but I would probably yelp and I'd be upset with that person for not paying attention. When you have a dog and you do the same thing, like I remember one night I was putting them into their kennels for the night. We have them both kennel trained, and it was dark outside. I was coming around the side of the house on the sidewalk, and I accidentally stepped, I think it was on Ebony, on her paw. Well, of course she yelped, but the interesting thing about a dog is they don't take it personal, nor hold it against you. Um, I don't know. I just always have thought that's interesting. If only I could be that way more as a human, to be more willing to, more quick to forgive someone and just look past it and move on. But they've been both very good puppies to have around. Ebony, like I say, is more outgoing, and she will do things. She swims too. Both of them enjoy the water now. Although Empress, for a long time, it took her a lot longer than Ebony to get used to the water. Like I say, she was just more of a princess about it. But now I don't think that matters at all. She's as down for the water as Ebony is, except for in the swimming pool. We got this little wading pool outside, and oops, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm gonna finish these fields. I'm gonna have to lease this roller for a bit longer, I'm afraid. But yeah, we got this little wading pool, and Ebony will spend time in it. She'll just haul off into it and flop down to cool off, on hot days. Empress, for whatever reason, won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So, go figure. I mean, that's animals for you, and they're different personalities. They kind of are a little messy, like in the flower beds. I'd like to keep them smoother, but they carve out their own little spots to do whatever they do, and kind of tear around the place a little bit. We call it the zoomies, when they're just zooming around, chasing each other, doing whatever they do. But fun to have dogs around, no doubt about it. Other types of pets we've had, I guess if you could call them pets, like I said in the last episode, it's been quite varied. For a while, my father owned a horse, and the name of the horse was RC. I think just the letters R and C. I have no idea what they stood for. We speculated over the years, that it maybe meant Royal Commander, or, and you just fill in the blank, Royal Crown or something. I don't know where my dad got him, but not very many people rode him ever or used him. I think he got it for my youngest sister back in the day when I was at home, so and she rode him quite a bit. But then he kind of just sat in the pasture, didn't do much, until my daughter got interested in horses. And there's a lot of girls that get interested in horses. I'm not sure just what the appeal is to them, but definitely there's an appeal there. Matter of fact, I mean, some have said Farming Simulator, when it's starting in Farm Sim 19, when they added the rideable horse, part of the reason they did that was a marketing ploy to get women interested in the game, or girls. And maybe that is the purpose that they did that. I don't know. But all I know is my daughter fell in love with a horse, and she, for a couple years in high school, she was part of their equestrian team, where they did all kinds of, oh, I don't know that I call them stunts, but gaming, I guess, with horses. So one of the most prominent games I think she was interested in with using the horse was called team penning. And team penning is where there's a herd of cattle at one end of the arena, and you and two others, also on horseback, are supposed to cut out some calves from the group. All the calves have numbers on them. So if the announcer calls out three, there's going to be three calves that have the number three painted on them, and you're to cut those out of the herd, and then you take them to the other end of the arena, and there's a little pen down there. Don't know how big the pen is, but you're to pen those cattle in there. And there's different points, if you get it down there, if you get one or two, and depending on how long it takes you to do it, I think they give you, oh, what was it? Was it a minute and a half? 2 minutes? I don't remember. It wasn't very long. I mean, those girls had to be on the ball. And I say girls, I mean it was open to boys too. But mainly the competitors in this were young girls that did this. There was a few guys mixed it in. So anyway, that's how she used RC. I think kind of after high school for a little while during the summer, she and some of her friends did some things at a rodeo, various rodeos with RC. I'm not sure what all they did at these, but I know she took him a number of areas, kind of, I wouldn't say around the state, but definitely within the Willamette Valley, kind of where we live, just using him one last time. And then when she was done with him, um, I think my father sold him to someone. So I guess technically that wasn't really our pet, it was his pet, but our family was the only one that was using him for a while. But it's just interesting too. Horses are a special type of animal, that personally I I've never done much with horses. I've ridden them a few times, my growing up years, or when I worked on Lone Oak, they always had a horse or two around. It's never really something I got into, the riding of horses, and honestly, the idea kind of scares me. I mean, over time, there's been people that have been bucked off of the horse and have hurt themselves real bad, and I think there was even an actor one time that became a, oh, I know who it was. It was Christopher Reeves. I think he was a Superman actor or something. I remember, and he got bucked off a horse, and I think he became a quadriplegic. So they aren't animals you want to just mess around with. You gotta kind of know what you're doing. And I would say for my daughter, she did learn how to work with a horse and spent a lot of time training and riding, and tried to take some protective measures. She never really liked wearing a helmet, and I think in the competitions for team penning and all the other games they did with the horses, they mandated that they had to wear some kind of helmet to protect their head. But my daughter was thrown off a couple times, and one of those times we had to take her to the hospital. So it's something you had to be careful of, but I don't know that I've ever told her this, but I kind of breathed a sigh of relief when she was done with her her horsing around, maybe if I can put it that way. It was just kind of a relief because, I wouldn't say you were on pins and needles, but you always wondered when maybe something would happen that wasn't expected. Here, let me get around this rock. And so anyway, that was RC. We had a horse. My daughter also showed a number of sheep kind of at the county fair. um, through, I think it was 4-H, and then the year after that it was through FFA. FFA, both programs are wonderful programs for kids and young adults to learn a number of things in life, and then have also the opportunity to take an animal to the fair, show it kind of in a setting in front of a judge, in front of their peers, in front of a number of spectators watching, and so they work with this animal over the summer, starting with, in this case, be a young lamb, and they feed it out. She was very fastidious about what kind of a feed ration that her sheep got, and it wasn't only her sheep. I mean, she studied up on this. It was the horse too. He had a special diet that she would feed him for whatever his nutrient needs were. Um, so it was pretty obvious that she was going to become a vet. She was just so into this and knowing exactly what they needed and required. But same thing with the sheep, to get them to weight. There's certain weight specs they had to meet, and obviously the as the pounds went up, and when you sold it in the auction later, which kind of came at the end after they showed it, after the championship where ribbons and trophies and all that were handed out. Most of the kids would then sell their animal kind of at a public auction, and I love these programs. It's just wonderful for young people. Even though I didn't show an animal at the fair, when I was a young kid, I don't know if we weren't aware of it or what it was, but sometimes kids in town, it isn't just country kids, they figure out a way, so maybe through their parents encourage them to raise an animal. I just think that's an awesome idea. People anymore are so far removed from the farm and from some basic realities of life. Um, Maybe I can comment some more on this at another time. You know, the ability to see an animal born, for example. When you're on a farm or kind of around agriculture, you periodically get a window into life happening. And you never forget it when you see a calf born for the first time, and you see the mama cow, what she does with it, and you see kind of nature, just kind of how it works, um, and you see new life. I mean, that does something to you inside, and so I appreciate these programs at the fair, where the kids can bring an animal and show it after they've worked with the animal, they've had to feed it, take care of it, teach them some responsibility and all that, and then face the realities that these animals grow, and some of them are eaten, and and I know there's people that don't prefer to eat animals or are vegan or whatever. Okay, more power to them. That's their choice. But the realities are, a lot of these people couldn't continue keeping the animals, so at the fair, I mean, there actually is a not-for-profit here locally that is set up specifically with parents and people in it to form an auction committee where the whole goal is to have local business people come in, friends, family, whatever, to come and bid on the animals for these kids. And so I think the county fair is coming up here just in a week or two, I think, on it now. So it's a kind of a neat thing, and these kids, usually the bidding is way higher than these animals are ever worth. But it's kind of something the kids can make a little money on it, save it for college or whatever, or for something that's important to them, and so it's a way to to turn a buck while they do this and are learning responsibility. And part of that responsibility, by the way, is to go try to encourage people to come and bid on your animal. The only way an auction works is if people show up to buy. And I know the accounting firm where I work, we have a number of clients, that are ag related, and so we are every year we are at this auction bidding on animals, and the kids figure this out. They figure out who is buying animals, and so this time of year, there's all kinds of young people that visit our office, and they're bringing letters to us, um, explaining, introducing who they are, sharing about their animal, and inviting us to come be part of it, at the fair. So I think it's just really cool. It's a kid, it teaches them a little bit of gumption that, things don't just happen in life, where, there's some kids could have an expectation, maybe an entitlement mindset or whatever you would say, to where, well, yeah, well, someone's just going to automatically show up and buy my animal. And no, that's not exactly how life works. I think we all know in the real world, in order to sell something, it takes effort and work to induce someone to buy. And so I remember working with my daughter on some of that as she would, set up her own letters or things that she would send to people. And one of the things I encouraged her is, give them a reason to come that benefits them. Don't just talk about yourself and your animal. If you want them to buy your animal, give them a reason as to what they get out of the deal, not just what you get out of it. So, had mixed results on driving home that particular message, but I think that's important that the program encourages the kids to do that, and that they, get off. That they don't just sit there and expect people to hand them something. They need to learn to, to go talk to business people, and to figure out how to encourage them to come and participate. So there was a number of lambs she showed over the years. I'm trying to think, was it three, four of them? I can't remember when she started doing it. Maybe it was four. I only seem to remember the name of her first lamb, which was Harley, and she never, I mean, she got blue ribbons. She never took home any championship trophies or anything like that. Although to me, my little girl's a champ no matter what she does. So, but it was a good experience for her. And I just remember watching her. She'd be so excited in the auction pit, when her animal was in there, and hearing all the people bid. And you can just see the pink come to her cheeks, and to see all the attention people gave to her and to her animal. It's just heartwarming to see. And not only her, but of course all the other kids in there. And when you see how hard some of them work, how much pride they have in their animals, I mean, it's just something encouraging to do, to give back or to give to the next generation. Pay it forward, I guess, is the term I'm looking for. To help instill values of hard work and diligence, in the next generation. I mean, some of those things are so lacking, and it's just good to see there are some kids who are stepping up to make a difference in their communities, and it's good to encourage. So she showed a few sheep, and at one point she wanted to have kind of her own little herd at home. So a receptionist at my accounting office had a number of sheep kind of over the years, and one of them she had was called Pinky. So she sold us Pinky at one point, and that became my daughter's sheep. And we took good old Pinky to go get her bred, and unfortunately, it never happened, and it just never worked for poor Pinky. I don't know if that's how God made her, or if something went wrong. I think we left her over there for an adequate time with the ram, but it just didn't work out. And Pinky ultimately passed away on our place. Um, Interestingly, I think Pinky had a stroke. At least that's what I think my daughter told me. I didn't know sheep had strokes. I guess that makes sense. But somehow she was able to determine she did. So maybe she was paralyzed a little bit later, but unfortunately, yeah, she eventually died before she could become a mum. And there was another little sheep, as I think on it now, just a lamb. My daughter, I mean, she would take any animal in, and she just adored them. So anytime, I think if a sheep farmer has a lamb that for whatever reason the mother rejects, he or she will try to place it under another ewe, so the little tyke can, get milk and get a start. But sometimes, for whatever the reason, they're not able to do that, and so those I think are referred to as bummer lambs, and they basically have to bottle feed. Well, bottle feeding is a lot of work. It's best to let the ewe do it if you can, and if you don't have time, and a lot of these sheep ranchers didn't, they would sell the bummer lambs to people, or even give them away sometimes. So I remember one time there was a bummer lamb available, I had a brother-in-law. I think he had a herd of sheep, and so he had one. I think it was his. I don't remember. Anyway, we got ourselves another little lamb. His name was Al. Well, or that's the name my daughter gave to him. And you know, you would think we would have noticed this, but there was something very unique about Al that basically doomed him from ever having a long life, if you will. We fed him a little bit from a bottle, but at some point he wasn't interested in any more food, taking milk from a bottle, and he just was kind of anemic, sickly, and wouldn't really wouldn't really perk up. Spent a lot of time just laying on the floor. He couldn't hardly get to his legs. Was really wobbly. That one we had in the house for a little while, by the way, while my daughter was trying to figure out what his issue was. Well, come to find out, I think at some point my daughter said Al had never taken a dump, he'd never pooped. Well, that's obviously a problem. So we were looking at him one time back there, and I don't know how this happened. I guess you'd call it a birth defect. He had no, let's just say, no exit, no area where he could expel poop from his body. So no wonder he wasn't hungry, and so everything he had ever eaten was still locked up inside, and I'm sure he just felt miserable. So my brother-in-law, who was also a vet, a veterinary surgeon, he came over to our home and he basically created an exit, shall we say, for Al, and it kind of was very crude, if you will. with with a knife, he cut an opening, and so little Al could evacuate himself. But I kind of think it was too late, too little, too late. We immediately tried to feed him some more, and he wouldn't take it. And finally, I think my brother-in-law put a tube in him, and then proceeded to dump a whole bunch of milk down his into his tummy. And I don't know if it was too much, but I remember just watching him. One of his helpers was holding Al at the time, and you could just see the life go out of his eyes right as he poured that in. So I don't know. Maybe there was other things wrong with Al, but the poor little guy just didn't make it. But we enjoyed having him around for while he was there. But he never grew up to be a sheep. He just was just a little lamb, if you will, and didn't make it. I think that maybe covers. Does that cover all the sheep? Man alive, I already see him coming to the end of another half hour. What all animals do I have? Can't even remember if I mentioned Carmel the cat. We had an orange cat for a while. It was on the place. That one lasted the longest. Well, let's see here. Oh yeah, the rabbit. I think we had two rabbits at some point. One of them we kept just a short period of time. I hardly count it. And then someone else in my family, one of my brothers and their kids, absconded with it. Like somehow they thought it was their rabbit, so they took it. Okay, fine and dandy. Later we got our own little bunny, and he was just the cutest little thing. Named him Jasper, and he was kind of I think he was a lop ear. I think that's what they call him. So his ears never stood up. He couldn't get him to stand up. They just kind of fell down over his face or whatever. And just gripped your heart every time you looked at him. He was pretty tame. He would let you hold him. Um, so there was a number of times we actually had him in the house. For whatever reason, it seemed like my wife would typically hold him, while we were at the family dinner table. Not sure why. Occasionally after supper with the family, we'll read the Bible together and talk about it, and it seemed like it was during those times that we had Jasper, that's what we named him, in the house. And, oh, there went another rock. Did I get all this up on the hill? I think I did. And so uh, that's when we have him in the house. But he was just a little rascal too. Occasionally we would turn him loose, and he would kind of. It was funny to watch him on the floor. We have all hardwood floors basically, and he couldn't hardly get traction with his little paws, and so he'd scoot around and spin out, and he couldn't hardly get going. It was just hilarious watching him. But whenever he got on the carpet or on a rug or whatever, he and roam around. Oh, I was carrying that. Get out of there, Rock. There we go. Enough to pick him up. But anytime he got on the carpet, he would patrol the house and just do a number on our electric cords. It took us a little while to figure this out, but that little rascal would go chew on them things. And I mean, these were appliances plugged into the wall, and it was live electricity. I don't know how the little varmint, kept from one getting electrocuted, because he just chowdered these wires, chewing them with his teeth, and you would look at it, it's like, how did you keep from getting electrocuted? But two, how we kept from burning the house down, because I would have thought some of those wires could literally short out. But yeah, any place we had a lamp or something like that was plugged in, he would find the wires and chew them up. So that was not very helpful. So we had to keep a closer eye on him and couldn't turn him as loose as often as he wanted. But he also had this very funny tendency, and it's impossible to communicate with animals when they need to go to the bathroom, shall we say. Maybe sometimes you'll have a dog or cat that scratches at the door or lets you know that they have some business to take care of. But a rabbit, he couldn't tell you, so you kind of had to be on the ball. But it's like he was, I think my daughter said he could be trained. And so we had a kennel for him for a while. It was a rectangle shaped kennel that we put him in. And he learned to do his business in one of the corners of, of this kennel. So he knew that, but then thereafter, any time he was sitting on something shaped like a rectangle, he would do his business at the corner of the rectangle. I mean, he did it on one of our mats in the bathroom. We had some rugs in the front hallway that he would do it. He wouldn't poop in the middle, he would poop off in the corner. I mean, it just happened time and time again, like on a placemat, a piece of paper. Sometimes if he's sitting on my wife's lap, he would back into the nook of her arm and he would release his payload there, much to her delight, I can assure you. But it was just something kind of funny. I don't know if all animals are that way, that they associate a particular shape, with their home and where they need to do their business, but it was just kind of funny to observe that. But alas, poor little Jasper didn't make it either. We eventually took him outside and gave him a home out there. We had a special kennel set up for him. It was an open air kennel. And one time when we were off on vacation as a family, we had one of our neighbors help take care of it for a while. And we got a text while we were away that said, I can't find the rabbit. We have no idea what happened to him. We never found him. But what we suspect happened is that a hawk maybe swooped in and grabbed him because, like I say, his outside home was open air. Um, or he could have bounded over the edge and walked off. I really don't know. But he was such a cute little buddy. And until then, I'd never really had any. Growing up, we had a few pets, but we never had rabbits around that I recall. Which is kind of funny. I know the past couple of episodes I've talked about stories my father told, and a lot of them involve rabbits. One would have thought maybe they would have introduced us to some somewhere along the way, but they hadn't. That was basically the only rabbit we ever had. We may not have had him for a year. I don't recall exactly. Well, I'm looking at the clock and I'm over. So what do? I'll get him turned around here, and I think I'm gonna call her good for this episode and let you all go for now. So thank you for stopping by, for coming to take a listen. Hope you're all having a great day, whatever you're doing, wherever you're at. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again on the next one. Bye-bye for now.